Here is the full English translation of your story. Translated naturally and fluidly, while preserving the dramatic tension, vivid imagery, and emotional depth. This version is ready for narration on your English channel. Approximately 50-55 minutes. When spoken slowly with pauses for suspense and emotion. The Gilded Vultures. Imagine a freezing October morning in Manhattan. The sky is the color of cold steel. Black glass towers rise like knives poised to draw blood. At the very top of Langford Tower, the iconic symbol of New York financial power, Victor Langford lies motionless on the marble floor of his penthouse. Eyes still wide open, staring into nothingness. His heart stopped beating at exactly 6:12 a.m. No one holding his hand. No final words. Only the relentless ticking of the antique wall clock. Tick, tock, as if counting down to the war about to explode. Victor Langford was never a father. He was a predator. Born in the filthy alleys of Brooklyn, he clawed his way to the top with nothing but hunger and a razor-sharp mind. By the time he died, Langford Capital Group controlled $450 billion, money that could topple governments, crown Wall Street kings, and bury enemies so quietly their screams never reached the press. But Victor never learned how to love. He only learned how to own. And he died without leaving a clear will. Only one cold, ambiguous sentence remained in an old legal document. The company shall belong to my children, according to the capability and commitment they have demonstrated. One sentence. One loaded gun with the safety already off. The morning after the funeral, the three children stepped into the 72nd floor boardroom. The air was so thick you could almost smell the blood about to spill. Alexander Alex Langford, 45, the eldest, took the head of the table like a king reclaiming his throne. Silver at the temples, jaw clenched so tight the muscle twitched. For 20 years he had lived inside the company like a second heartbeat. 100. Hour weeks, 3 near heart attacks, 2 divorces, 3 children he barely recognized. He stared at the others with burning eyes and spoke in a voice cold as frozen steel. I am the only one who has bled for this company. I sacrificed my youth, my marriages, my health. This chair belongs to me by right. Anyone who stands in my way will regret the day they were born. Damian Langford, 40, the middle son, leaned back in the leather chair like he was lounging at a beach club. Shirt half unbuttoned, the faint scent of last night's whiskey and someone else's perfume still clinging to him. He laughed a low, dangerous sound. Sacrifice? You call licking Dad's boots for 20 years a sacrifice? I hold 18% of the voting shares. I can sell them tomorrow and walk away richer than God. Or I can stay and turn your life into hell. Let's auction the chair. Highest bidder wins. I'll open at 200 million cash and my yacht in Saint-Tropez. The room fell silent for half a second. Then the heavy oak door creaked open. Elena Voss stepped inside, 34 years old. Simple black dress hugging her athletic frame, dark hair pulled into a severe bun, eyes the color of winter jade sharp enough to cut glass. No one in Langford Tower had ever seen her face before. She carried a worn leather briefcase like a weapon. She was Victor's illegitimate daughter, the mistake he had buried for 34 years with millions of dollars. Elena sat down without being invited. Her voice was quiet, but every word landed like a hammer. I didn't come here to beg for scraps. I came to collect what Father owed me, and I will burn this entire empire to the ground before I let either of you destroy it out of greed. 3 siblings. 3 completely different scars. 1 empire worth $500 billion on the verge of shattering. Alex moved like a shark that smelled blood. At 3:07 a.m., he called the senior editor of the Wall Street Journal from his private line. By sunrise, the front page exploded across every screen on Wall Street. Damien Langford siphons $47 million through shell companies to fund private jets, superyacht parties, and models. The story was 100% true. But Alex added a gift. Forged emails suggesting Damien was secretly negotiating to sell his shares to a Chinese sovereign wealth fund threatening national security. Stock price crashed 12% before lunch. Billion-dollar clients called to cancel contracts. The board demanded Damien appear for emergency questioning. That night, Damien kicked open the door to Alex's corner office. His eyes were wild with rage and alcohol. "You think you're so clever, big brother? You want war? I'll give you a war that ends with your name in the dirt." He hurled a crystal whiskey glass against the desk. It shattered. Blood from his cut hand dripped onto the pure white carpet like red ink on snow. Alex didn't flinch. He simply stared back with the coldest smile. "You've lived like a parasite on this family for 20 years. Now the bill has come due." Damien refused to bleed alone. He hired the most expensive private investigator in New York, a former FBI agent who never failed. 48 hours later, the investigator delivered a thick envelope. Inside were photographs. Crystal clear, time-stamped, devastating. Alex's new wife, the stunning 32-year-old socialite, he had married only 11 months earlier inside a luxury suite at the Peninsula Hotel with the CEO of Langford's fiercest rival. Not once, 5 separate occasions. Damien didn't leak them to the press. That would have been too easy. Instead, he forwarded every single photo to Alex's wife's private email and blind CC'd the entire board of directors with one short, vicious line. "Congratulations, brother. Looks like our family really knows how to stay close." By 4 p.m. that day, Alex's wife had filed for divorce in Manhattan Supreme Court, demanding half of everything, including his Langford shares. Paparazzi swarmed outside Alex's building. His phone wouldn't stop ringing. Alex stood alone in his dark office, staring at the family photo on his desk, the one taken on their wedding day, when everything still looked perfect. For the first time in his life, the unbreakable Alexander Langford felt his world cracking. He called Damien, voice trembling with fury and pain. "What the hell do you want from me?" Damien's laugh was pure venom through the speaker. "Sit down at the table like a man, or I keep playing until there's nothing left of you." Elena watched her two brothers tear each other apart in silence, like a lioness waiting in tall grass. She knew if they continued, Langford Capital would be dead before anyone could claim the throne. At the end of the third week, in a private room with only the three of them, Elena placed a small black USB drive on the polished mahogany table. "You've both had your fun," she said softly. "Now it's my turn." She plugged it in. The massive screen lit up. A 2017 video. Victor Langford, completely drunk on a superyacht off Ibiza, arms slung around young Damien's shoulders, laughing like a mad king. "Son, I just wired $180 million to that Venezuelan minister. No paper trail, no witnesses. You're the only one I trust with this." Damien, drunk and grinning on the screen. "Dad, you're a fucking legend." The footage was razor sharp, the voices unmistakable. Damien turned ghostly white and slumped forward, head in his hands. Alex whispered in horror, "Father, you really did that?" Elena stopped the video. Her voice was like ice. "I have the original file. 3 encrypted copies in 3 different countries. If either of you forces a vote before we reach a civilized agreement, this video goes straight to the SEC, the Department of Justice, every major newspaper on the planet, and Interpol. Langford Capital disappears by breakfast. And both of you will die in federal prison." The silence was so complete they could hear each other's heartbeats. Climax, midnight at the grave. The night before the final board vote, both Alex and Damien received the same text from Elena. "Father's grave, 1 a.m., only us, come alone." They arrived under a freezing drizzle. Wind howled between the headstones. 3 shadows stood before Victor's massive black granite monument. Elena spoke first, her voice trembling with years of buried pain. "Father never loved any of us. He only used us as chess pieces. Alex, the perfect eldest son who had to be flawless. Damien, the wild son he could show off like a trophy. And me, the dirty little secret he paid millions to hide. But on his last night alive, he called me. He said one thing I will never forget. You 3 are my greatest failure and the only real hope I ever had." She looked at her brothers, tears shining in her eyes for the first time. I don't want to destroy this company. I want to save it. But if you two keep fighting like animals, I swear I will drag every single one of us into hell. Alex dropped his head. His proud shoulders finally broke. I'm so tired. 20 years I killed myself to make him proud. I missed my children's birthdays. My wives left me, and he never once said, "Well done, son." Never. Damien laughed bitterly, but tears streamed down his face for the first time in years. And I just wanted him to see me, even once, just once. Elena stepped forward and held out her hand in the cold rain. Then we stop, right here, right now, not for the money, not for the power, because none of us wants to become the monster he was. Resolution. Light after the storm. The next morning, the boardroom was packed. Every director, lawyer, and major shareholder watched in stunned silence. Elena stood tall at the head of the table. My final proposal: I will serve as chairperson for the first 5 years. Alex remains CEO of daily operations, but every major decision carries my signature. Damien keeps a non-voting board seat, receives a $250 million trust fund, and will complete a full, mandatory rehabilitation program funded by the company. In exchange, every copy of the Ibiza video will be destroyed forever. She paused, looking at her brothers with something close to love. And every single year on the anniversary of Father's death, the 3 of us will visit his grave together, not to honor his power, but to promise ourselves we will be better parents, better people than he ever was. The room held its breath. Then Alex reached out and took Elena's hand. Damien, eyes red, placed his hand on top of theirs. The vote was unanimous. 3 months later, Langford Capital stock had not only recovered, it had soared 27%. Clients returned. Headlines changed from family meltdown to the Langford Renaissance. Elena became the youngest chairperson in the company's history. Alex started leaving the office at 6 p.m. for the first time in decades, attending his daughter's ballet recital, coaching his son's little league game. Damien finished rehab, walked into the office sober for the first time, and asked Elena to teach him how the company actually worked. Exactly 1 year after Victor's death, under a gentle Manhattan drizzle, the 3 siblings stood together at the grave. Elena placed a single white rose on the stone and whispered, "Father, you were right. We were your greatest failure, but we are also the best thing you ever left behind." Alex put his arm around her shoulders. Damien stood on her other side, strong and steady. The gilded vultures had stopped fighting over the carcass. They had finally learned how to fly together. And the Langford Empire was no longer just the richest on Wall Street. For the first time in its history, it had a soul.